It was the fourth box of eggs, 48 eggs. I stood on my porch, surrounded by her gifts, and all I could do was stare at the house next door. She was watching me through her blinds, a ghost in her own window, and I finally knew, with a certainty that chilled me to the bone, that this wasn't about being a good neighbor. It was a siege, and we were losing. The house on Whisperwood Lane was meant to be a sanctuary, a quiet haven Leo and Maya had moved across the country for. Tucked away on a leafy, tranquil street, their new home was a blank canvas, ready to be filled with the gentle rhythms of a peaceful life. For the first week, everything was perfect. A comforting hum of boxes being unpacked and the scent of fresh paint in the air. Their perfect new life was gently unfolding, a story of peace and community, just waiting to be written. But then came the knock. Not a simple knock, but an insistent, rapid-fire tattoo against their front door. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and Leo was in the middle of a high-stakes Zoom meeting. He tried to ignore the sound, but it didn't stop. It moved from the front door to the living room window, a rhythmic tapping against the glass, before returning to the door with renewed vigor. This frantic, bizarre symphony lasted for a full 5 minutes, a relentless assault on their peace. 3 times that day, the strange performance repeated, each one a mystery. A few days later, the enigma took a human form. A small woman with a warm, wrinkled face and a smile that seemed to light up her entire expression emerged from the house next door. "Hello," she called out, her voice a little bird flutter. "My name is Elena. Welcome to the neighborhood." She held out a container filled with a fragrant, steaming dish of pancit and adobo chicken. Leo's heart warmed. He knew Maya, who was of Filipino heritage, would appreciate the gesture, even though they had complicated dietary restrictions. No dairy, no gluten, no eggs. "That's so kind of you, Elena," Leo said, graciously taking the container. He apologized for not answering the door earlier. "Oh, you don't worry, dear. I just wanted to say hi," she chirped. "I was so excited to have new neighbors." Back inside, Leo and Maya separated the chicken from the noodles. The chicken was delicious, a rare treat of a homemade meal. They had to discard the pancit, a shame given Elena's effort. They hadn't mentioned their allergies. It seemed like a simple, one-time friendly gesture, but they were terribly wrong. The knocks began again, and with them, the gifts. A gentle tap in the morning, a series of quick raps in the afternoon. Sometimes it would be a knock and a ring of the doorbell, a cacophony that made their dogs bark and startled them both. Elena would appear at the door with new food, a lasagna layered with cheese, fresh baked bread still warm from the oven, a pie with a thick golden crust. Each time they would politely decline, patiently explaining their allergies. "Oh, no cheese?" she'd ask, her brow furrowing in concern. "That's right, no dairy," Maya would explain. "And you can't eat bread?" Elena would echo, her voice filled with a kind of gentle disbelief. "No, we can't eat bread," Leo would confirm, the words feeling utterly ridiculous. They thought the message had finally landed. It had not. The very next day, a new round of knocking. When Maya opened the door, a small mountain of bags sat on the porch. Elena stood a few feet back, a proud smile on her face. "I thought you might like some bread," she chirped. The bags contained 5 different types of bread. They stared at the bags, then at each other, and back at a beaming Elena. They gave the bread to a young couple down the street. It was a small, charitable act that eased the awkwardness, but the frustration was beginning to simmer. The gifts only escalated. A week later, as Leo was watering the flower beds, Elena approached him with a carton in her hands. "I'm on my way to the grocery store, dear. Do you need any eggs?" Leo sighed, the water from the hose pooling around his feet. "That's very kind, Elena, but we can't have eggs. We're allergic." "Oh, right. I forgot." "Okay, well, you have a lovely day now." But 2 days later, he found a cardboard box on his porch. Inside, nestled on a bed of recycled newspaper, were 4 dozen eggs. 48 eggs. He stared at the carton, then at the sky, a single exasperated laugh escaping his lips. Maya came to the door, took one look, and shook her head. They were now running a small, unwanted food pantry, constantly trying to find homes for the items they couldn't consume. The breaking point arrived after a 10-day vacation. They pulled into their driveway, exhausted but happy, only to find their front porch transformed into a makeshift storage unit. 4 large boxes were stacked neatly against the door, an unsolicited welcome back filled with more food they couldn't eat. The next day, it began again. The rhythmic knocking started at 3 in the afternoon, a steady, unwelcome beat. Leo and Maya chose to ignore it. The knocking came again at 5, then at 7. Finally, at 9, another knock echoed through the quiet house. Through a crack in the blinds, they saw her turn and walk back to her house with a look of profound disappointment on her face. They were stuck in a kind of silent, passive-aggressive standoff, a neighborhood conflict fought with unwanted casseroles and relentless knocking. The house on Whisperwood Lane, their sanctuary, had become a fortress, and they had no idea how to end the siege.